the Biden administration, there's been two things over the past couple of days that really are indicative of a dynamic that I know you're familiar with. We went through this with the Obama administration from almost day one, it felt like. And it is enraging. It's nuts. And that is between both this sort of rescission of the grant money for safe drug pipe smoking that they have now pulled, and this splitting of the Afghan assets so that, depriving the Taliban presumably of billions of dollars and switching the 3.5 billion to humanitarian aid when the central bank of Afghanistan needs this money. They are just in this incredibly defensive crouch that it's almost as like there's something, they found the Manny codex and they're just reading off the game plan that has been eternal with Democratic administrations.
It is so predictable, and it's all of this is coming purely from what they perceive as blowback from the right wing and the Republican and, conservative media that has pushed on the Afghanistan issue. It's that, Biden mishandled the leaving from Afghanistan. And this thing with the crack pipes is just, it's Shirley Sherrod, it's Acorn, it's, it's General Betrayus. I used to call this thing, I used to call it a patented hissy fit. And they go through this thing and they have this big explosion, and immediately the Democrats back off, immediately showing weakness and basically, admitting that something is wrong with the decision that they made. I wish I understood this. You would think after all these years, this goes all the way back to Clinton, maybe even Carter. It's possible it goes back that far. It certainly goes back to Clinton and also Obama, which is this, this instant, terror that they feel that they're being, and they feel that the polling is bad and they've got to do this stuff. I'm waiting for the next couple of weeks. They're going to start firing people, right? This is the next step. They're going to let, somebody go, and some sacrificial lamb, and somebody else is going to be taken to the woodshed, and God only knows what. This is such a predictable dynamic, and it's so pathetic because at this point, look at what we're dealing with on the other side. They're out there saying that the insurrection was, what did they call it?
Legitimate political discourse.
So, it's absolutely absurd. Yes, the polling numbers are low, but it's not because of crack pipes. It's because of inflation and the pandemic. And, these are big, huge structural problems. And the fact that they're running from these little things just tells you the weakness. And it makes me sad because they actually do have an opportunity, because the right wing is in such disarray, and they're fighting amongst themselves, which we can talk about. They actually there's a chance they could salvage this Congress in the fall if they played their cards right. But I don't see any evidence that they're going to do that.
I see a tiny speck of evidence, but let's wait on that because there was a tweet I saw today. It's not directly on point, but it was from somebody from Pew, and they were doing polling about in January. 23% of the public said they had heard a lot about Russia's military buildup near Ukraine. 15% heard a lot about recent cases before the Supreme Court. That would be, incidentally, well, I don't know if this would have counted for in January, the Alabama one, but certainly other cases in terms involving abortion. Right. Presumably, right? People would have heard about that. 9% heard a lot about U.S. diplomatic boycott of Beijing Olympics. The point being is that the percentage of people who heard about the pipes,
right.
it has to be so infinitesimally small. The number of people who would have an issue with and I know exactly how it go. You're giving the Taliban $7 billion as if it's like our, money. Like, let's just go back to like the billions of dollars that they said that they gave Iran, which was also, again, not true. It was just that we had frozen the Iranian assets.
Right.
This stuff has no political salience, and it is the functional equivalent, and I have no doubt they can make it as big as they did, of the Dr. Seuss, books being pulled. Does everybody remember that? Like
Mr. Potato Head.
The way that they respond to these things is just stunning. It is just stunning. Like what? Like, they are living in a universe where they don't understand the media environment anymore at all. I don't think they have any concept of the media environment. And they also don't have a concept of, this is stuff like, I'm trying to come up with some type of like analogy, or it's like if you have dogs and cats and like somehow you leave like the toy the cats are playing with has any bearing on what the dog does. The dog doesn't care at all what the cats are playing with. Like, every conservative in the country could know about the crack pipes, the clean crack, and it's not going to change a single vote come the fall at all, at all.
Exactly. Those people they are not, they are gone. They are the people who are watching Fox News and Newsmax and OAN. I mean, look at the numbers. I mean, just in sheer numbers, what is it? Maybe 3 million people a night? I mean, this is a country of 350 million people. So 3 million people are watching Fox News. Maybe there's a few million more who catch up on the news online or watch on Facebook or whatever. This is not that those people who care about crack pipes are gone. They are not ever going to vote for Democrats. Nobody else knows about the crack pipes, or more importantly, none of them care about the crack pipes. This is not an issue that people are sitting around going, wow, that Biden administration, they're just, they're really pushing drug use or something. I mean, it's like it is Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss. You're absolutely right. It's the same thing. And it would be as if, Joe Biden came out and gave a big speech about Dr. Seuss and how much he really wanted those books back. And said it's really important that we have every Dr. Seuss book in the libraries or whatever. I mean, this is ridiculous. And of course, I mean, there are some issues that seem to be salient that are being pushed on the right, like, the critical race theory thing and anti-masking and that kind of stuff in the school boards and all that. That's legitimate concern for people working on congressional races. They have to think about that stuff because it does have salience, among voters who are not just Fox viewers, apparently, from what the polling says. So they have to think about that stuff. But this idea of, but getting back to Afghanistan, which is really, really important. Nobody cares about that, about the fact that, they're giving humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. And if anything, all the people who were just crying crocodile tears over our abandonment of the Afghan people and how we'd been there for years and then we just left them behind and blah, blah, blah. And they're still going on and on about the terrible evacuation. These are the same people who they're afraid of. They're afraid of those people saying you're giving money to the Taliban, just like you gave to the Iranians, as you point out, which, I mean, those are the same people. So none of this makes any sense. And I think you and I've talked about this before. When you're in these situations, like with the Afghan situation, this is a humanitarian catastrophe that is happening in Afghanistan. People are starving. There's pictures that looks like, Ethiopia back in the 80s. I mean, there's little pictures of little children starving. That this money is sitting there. That in this kind of situation, you just do the right thing. You don't, the politics are going to be what they are, and they'll probably be bad. I don't even know, and that shouldn't even be a consideration. We've been in this place many times before, and the idea that I thought Joe Biden was Mr. I got a big heart and I care about people. That was his that was his main attraction, I think, was that he's, the kind of, griever in chief and that sort of thing. So I'm very disappointed, to be honest with you. That is something that is really, really disappointing me. The lack of compassion for the Afghan people.
Oh, well, that has been just atrocious. And it's frankly, I mean,
it's awful.
We have had that has been the case for 22, 21 years. And then frankly, the same with the Iraqi people and the Yemeni people. I mean, that's how we roll in this country. Yes, from a humanitarian standpoint, this is they should have never. This issue should have been resolved 4 months ago. They should have just done it so they didn't have time to sit there and become a political question. But I want people to understand this, like that distinction with the CRT and the school boards, and I think a lot of that is contingent, frankly, on where COVID is come the fall. But this is the way the dynamic works. And I know you know this, Heather, but I just want to make this clear to everybody. Joe Biden theoretically has a legislative agenda. It is now, let's just pretend that he has a legislative agenda that remains. I am a congressperson from some district in Pennsylvania that is, purplish. If I vote with the president and he's got big poll ratings, and this may or may not be the case, but it's certainly what the White House presumes these lawmakers are thinking. And it is, in many ways, the way the lawmakers think. Whether it's right or wrong, that's the way they think. So the White House feels like, we need to have good poll numbers to convince these lawmakers to vote with us. Now, we have seen that didn't work with Joe Manchin, although he was able to wait until he was able to sink Joe Biden's I'm quite convinced that the sinkage started happening when he invited Republicans into the White House to talk about Build Back Better. But nevertheless, the idea that Joe Biden has any type of legislative agenda that's going to be controversial enough at this point that it's going to make a difference to that blue state voter or that purple lawmaker, this issue of the crack pipes. But they don't have to address that. That lawmaker may have to address CRT or school boards and finesse it in some way and come up with an answer, maybe by the fall. But they'll never have to address the crack pipes. That's never going to be something that's come up.